Hey everybody, Anthony's Cat here. Bitcoin, monthly chart, all-time high, 69156. Previous all-time high, 68997. Bitcoin just made an all-time high. It's on a very, very parabolic bull trend. If you look at the Bollinger Band expanded. 20-month moving average is pointing up. Very, very bullish. Very, very bullish trend. It's just starting. It could go on for another 12 to 18 months, possibly longer. Maybe shorter, who knows? But it's very, very impulsive. Biggest question from a lot of people, why are the miners lagging behind? Mara, Riot, Bitfarms, even CleanSpark's lagging behind. And you also have a lot of smaller miners that are lagging behind. The question is why? I'm going to try to get a little bit into why that is. So first of all, I think a big reason is that Bitcoin is becoming more and more scarce. I mean, even throughout the whole year last year, Bitcoin's being taken off exchange, and there really isn't that many Bitcoins to be around to be bought on exchanges. And when it runs out, the price is going to go up. And I think that's what's starting to happen. You're really starting to have a lot higher demand, but there's not enough supply. That's kind of how it works, right? And with that, it's going to be a lot easier to drive the price of Bitcoin up, just simply based on tokenomics. And this is kind of unusual because this is happening really, really fast, even before the halving is happening. But that's just the way it is. It's supply and demand. The problem with miners is there's a lot more stocks that are floating around. There's dilution, and they're just more available, and they just haven't gone through that demand yet, like Bitcoin has, in terms of ETFs and things like that. Eventually, the miners are going to make a lot of money if Bitcoin continues to go up parabolic. Eventually, the valuation is going to catch up. Eventually, the miners are going to catch up. If anything, they're going to potentially outperform. But they're lagging behind because they're different things. Bitcoin's Bitcoin, miners are miners. Those are stocks. This is a cryptocurrency. And it's important to remember that. The other thing, too, is there's this narrative about how halving could be bad for miners. Personally, I think that might be a little bit more of like a sell the rumor, buy the news kind of thing. And it is the narrative that's been kind of thrown around because there could be some uncertainty. The rewards that the miners are going to get from mining Bitcoin is going to halve after halving. That's exactly what it means, right? So it makes it a lot harder for the miners to actually gain revenue and things like that. Ultimately, I don't think it really matters because if Bitcoin's prices goes parabolic, the miners are going to make a ton of money anyway, regardless. They're just going to make a bunch of money anyway. If they survive through the halving, if they're able to stay competitive, they're going to be fine, right? So why is it that they're kind of lagging behind? I still think there's a lot of kind of sell the rumor, buy the news, and I think after the halving, people might be a little bit more comfortable buying into the miners, just because of the narrative it's there, and like everybody's looking at it, okay, the price went up after halving. What happened? It may not have mattered that much for a lot of these miners. The one thing too is that I think Bitcoin itself versus the Bitcoin miners, they might also be benefiting from different sources of liquidity. And I'll show you that in a second. I think that the miners, they're still stocks, and they're going to lump together more with like the small cap stocks, like the IWM Russell 2000 stocks, which IWM, the Russell 2000 small cap index, that still hasn't popped yet. They're still nowhere near their all-time high, whereas SPY, SP 500, and Nasdaq, QQQ, they're making like brand new all-time highs anyway, just like what Bitcoin just did. So the miner stock, they're going to be lagging behind a little bit. Now, if you want to make the comparisons between the past cycle and see how the miner stocks did, we can look at that, and we're going to look at that in a second. It's a little bit tricky because the last halving, the next halving is going to happen April 19th of next month. The last halving happened around May 11th of 2020. And there are a lot of miners that haven't even been a public company, don't even really have any like technicals to chart or anything like that. There are a few that's been around. There's Riot, who's been around since 2018. There is Mara, who started mining Bitcoin around early 2019. And there's also Bitfarms, and there's also Hut. I'm going to pull them up to kind of give you an idea in terms of how they're doing. First of all, the first one I'm going to look at, and remember this, right? Halving, April. Before that, you have a big giant COVID drop. Before that, you actually have about 8 months of downturn here, which was pretty brutal for a lot of people to have this kind of correction after a big giant up like that. You get people hyped again. You have like an 8-month, 9-month kind of thing, and then end up with a COVID crash. Those are pretty brutal time. The sentiment was very bad. And if you look at Riot at that time, it was a lot more sensitive to that poor bearish sentiment pre-halving. Again, halving happened in May. COVID drop, April reversal, and then halving, you have a big giant green candle right there. If you look at Bitcoin, what happened was, COVID drop, April reversal, and you do have a green candle right here. So I would argue that after halving, Riot tends to follow the technicals of Bitcoin a little bit better. It tends to be more sensitive after halving to the upsides. It could also be mean reversion too, because of how bad it was going down here. Hard to say, but I would also argue that maybe after halving, after the narratives of that, harder for miners to mine Bitcoin, after that, I think that these stocks may be a little bit more sensitive to go on upside. Now, I would also argue, I'm going to come back to this, the real bullishness didn't really happen until November of 2020. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. But overall, Riot is showing, pre-halving, pretty sensitive downside, not a whole lot upside. After halving, pretty sensitive to upside. So that's a positive. Let's look at Mara. Mara gives you a little bit of a different picture here. Mara gives you a picture of the COVID drop and also the months before it, very, very sensitive to the negative. Again, they didn't really start mining Bitcoin maybe until around early 2019, right? But it's just been very, very sensitive to the downside. March, COVID shutdown, drop, tanked. April, no reversal candle. Just like an indecisive doji candle, was just sitting right there. May, halving, reversal, but it didn't even engulf back to the previous high, or the previous candle right there. It's just kind of like went up and went down, and it just kind of closed midway. It didn't really start to reverse until June. And for whatever reason, Mara it just didn't do very well during this time. Even after halving, it just didn't do very well. Part of the reason maybe is because of the technicals. They were just so bad. It was just going bam, slam all the way down. And it's just going to take more time for it to kind of go up. But I don't know. It's tough to say whether or not the same thing's happening again, because right now Mara's actually got a pretty bull trend. Is forming these like higher highs and higher lows, and now it's just kind of forming higher highs, trying to form a little bit of higher low. Who knows, maybe it goes down to 19 before it goes up. But you have a pretty decent bull trend right here. It's not like how it was down here pre-halving, right? So I'm not sure if it's a fair comparison in terms of what's going to happen, but eventually after halving, it does seem like it's a lot more sensitive to the upside of Bitcoin. And really the big giant bullish candle was really, again, November of 2020. I want you to remember November 2020. There are a couple of other miners. Again, they're not really fair comparison. I'll show you why. Because Bitfarms IPO'd around here, and it might be because of valuation concerns. Usually IPOs they're a little bit overvalued, and eventually they just kind of tank and form like this kind of like parabolic downward move right here, until like COVID right here, March 2020, big down, right? April, a little bit of reversal candle, a little inside candle. May, halving, but it kept on going down for a few months after halving. I would argue it's not because of how miners are supposed to do. I would almost argue it's because it's just IPO here and just a pretty bad downtrend. It just takes time for you to correct the the issues that you're having there, right? I can't even do charting here to show you because the history is just not there. But it probably takes a longer time for it to kind of form a base before it's able to actually finally cause a reversal candle right here. And again, in November and December is when Bitfarms is really starting to become really, really bullish. The December candle is just absolutely ridiculous, by the way. So it's not really until here that's when Bitfarms is really starting to become very, very extra bullish around November, December. I'm not sure this is going to happen this time because, again, Bitfarms forming these higher highs and higher lows, higher high. This is a pretty nice bull trend. I think after the halving, most likely the bull trend would continue. And then something else happened. I'm going to show you what happened around like November, December here that really propelled the prices up here during the last cycle. One last Bitcoin miner stock I want to show you is Hut 8. And this is also, a little bit like kind of like an IPO become public right here. Again, the things to watch out for: March 2020, COVID shutdown, bam, down, right? April, a little bit of reversal. May, pretty nice reversal up. And then just like all the other ones, it kind of faltered, just like Bitfarms, it kind of faltered here for a few months before going up, right? Riot and Mara didn't do that. Riot and Mara actually ended up, having a pretty nice trend. I'll show you on how to, because there's a little bit more historic history here. I'll show you on the Bollinger Band what happened. March down, April up, May up. It's not ready yet because the 20-month moving average is still slamming it down as resistance. It takes a few months for you to kind of reverse all this stuff right here before you actually is able to have like a flatter 20-month moving average before price is actually able to kind of push up and go parabolic again. The big bullish candle is going to be November. I'm going to want to show you November right there. But it takes a few months to reverse the technical damage. I think it's probably going to end up doing the same thing here. I don't know if it's going to make the parabolic move up, but it's certainly going to be having a delay here. Maybe it's ready to go up. I don't know. But what happened here is that these are stocks. They have their own technicals they have to follow. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin started going up, post-COVID. These stocks are going to take their time. They're going to do their own thing. And when they do, it's going to be pretty parabolic and it's going to be pretty crazy. I want to show you one thing, which is to look at the indexes and what happened in November of 2020 when you started seeing these eye-popping candles over here for the miners. COVID, March 2020, big giant down, right? All-time high again for S&P 500, August of 2020. All-time high for the NASDAQ or the QQQ, June of 2020. All-time high for ARK Fun, May of 2020. So all these are pretty early. SPY, again, August. QQQ, around June. And ARK, around May. IWM, November. I want you to kind of burn this. So this is what really happened. Like the miners, they're small cap stocks. That's what they are. Bitcoin's market cap is like 1.3 trillion. And I think between CleanSpark, Mara, Riot, and all these miners, their market cap, each individually may be like a few $1 billion. Is a very tiny fraction of what the Bitcoin market cap is. So around November, bam, you have small cap going up. I think they probably have the same, very similar source of liquidity that they get benefited from. And when they get benefited from the same source of liquidity, when you have this big giant candle over here, the screen candle right here, and it challenges and it becomes all-time high again, I think that's when the miners are going to come. Right now, SPY, all-time high. QQQ, all-time high. Well, ARK is still kind of not doing very well. But IWM is nowhere near all-time high. Right now it's like 206, 207. All-time high for IWM is 244. We're still a ways above. And guess what? 20-month moving average is pointing up. Bollinger Band is expanding. It's getting ready to make a pretty parabolic move up, going back to all-time high over the next few months. When it does, I think it's going to make the miners even more bullish. Even as it rides along at the upper Bollinger Band, it's going to keep the miners going up more. And if it goes to all-time high, if it makes another big lick up like it did over here, the miners are going to be popping. Alright, it's been 15 minutes. Thank you for listening. Bye.